You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Scene of the Crime, 3 Men and a Mystery, Malice, Riddle Me That, All Things Crime, and Zodiac Speaking. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to look for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Episode 25, Veronica Reyes Diaz. January 17th, 2020 was a Friday night in Dover, Florida. Veronica Diaz was out with 2 friends that night, blowing off some steam after a long week of being a stay-at-home mom. Around 1:10 on the morning of the 18th, she got dropped off at home, and then got in her car and drove over to pick up her 2 older sons, Ricardo and Noah, who were 4 and 5 years old, from her sister's house in Plant City. She brought them back home to Dover and tucked them into bed. Her husband, Francisco, and youngest child, Joshua, were sleeping, and Francisco said he never saw her that night. Veronica's older son, Ricardo, later reported that Mommy went outside after she tucked them in. In the morning, around 6:30, Francisco saw that Veronica's car was parked outside the house, but there was no sign of Veronica anywhere. Francisco did not contact Veronica's father, Fidencio, who is our guest today, until Sunday around 3:30 p.m. Fidencio typically spoke with Veronica daily, and he had not been able to reach her on Saturday or Sunday. So when her husband texted to ask whether she was at his place, he panicked. Veronica's phone rang and rang, but she never answered his calls. He started to call around to Veronica's mom, Tina, and to her other family and her friends. The friend that Veronica was with on Friday night, Mariah, said that she had received a message from Veronica over the weekend that said just, quote, "I'm okay." But this message was very terse and not like Veronica at all. She continued to be incommunicado and did not return to her husband and 3 boys. Eventually, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office was called in. Francisco told Fidencio that Veronica's personal items were in her car: her wallet, purse, ID, keys, cash, and the shirt she had worn out that Friday night. But her cell phone was missing. Fidencio accessed his daughter's Google account via her Chromebook and saw something disturbing. Veronica's cell phone had never left the area that weekend. It was registering as in the area of her house on Saturday and Sunday until Monday, when it left the house around 11:45 a.m., and then after a few hours died or was turned off. Fidencio is certain that Veronica made it home that night. First of all, her boys were sleeping safely in their beds the next morning. She had definitely picked them up at her sister's house. Remember that one of the boys told police that he thought his mom had gone back outside after tucking him in. But Fidencio was able to review surveillance footage from a neighbor, which showed Veronica going into the house around 1:45 a.m. and not coming back out. Someone was visible on the grainy footage around 3:45 a.m. on the front porch, but the identity and even the sex of the person is undeterminable. The concept that Veronica might have left of her own accord is dismissed by her family. After all, she took nothing with her, not even her ID, except possibly her phone, if her husband is to be believed. She has not accessed her bank account, contacted anyone, or been seen anywhere. The family organized searches of the area, and searchers on horseback, ATVs, and on foot have canvassed the area to no avail. And it would not make sense for Veronica to leave at this time. Her husband, Francisco, was in the final stages of finalizing the adoption of Veronica's 2 older boys, who were fathered by another man, her former husband. They had appointments with the county court system to move along the adoption later that very week. She had asked her father to take the day off work and come along to celebrate the adoption. And she had made plans with her mom, Tina, for the following Monday. Her family firmly believes that she would never have left her 3 boys, whom she loved dearly. In short, someone else had caused Veronica to vanish. It has to be said that Veronica's family is very suspicious of her husband, Francisco. According to them, the couple had been together about 2 years, but Francisco never fit in with the loud and outgoing Diaz crowd. He was standoffish and quiet. The family began to notice that Francisco became more and more controlling. He didn't want Veronica to work outside the home, to see her family, or to go out with friends. If she did go out, just to bingo night at her aunt's house or some other normal outing, he would call and text her repeatedly. Family members witnessed arguments between the two and observed that he would try to dictate what she did, where she went, and who she saw. After Veronica disappeared, Fidencio learned from some of Veronica's friends that she admitted that Francisco had been verbally and physically abusive toward her. On the night that Veronica vanished, the friends that she was out with said that Francisco had repeatedly called his wife and the two had argued. Clearly, he did not want her to be out and was angry that she had disobeyed. We can only wonder what happened when Veronica returned home that night. It is very concerning that Francisco would call and text Veronica nonstop when she was out with friends, but when she disappeared, he suddenly became disinterested and didn't raise any kind of alarm until 36 hours had elapsed. When Francisco finally called the police to report Veronica missing, he did it from her mom Tina's house, meeting the deputies there. The family believes that he engineered it this way so they would not ask to search the house Veronica and he lived in, and they didn't. The house was not searched for quite some time after Veronica vanished. Furthermore, Francisco took steps to deter the police from looking for Veronica by telling them that she had left in the past. He told them that she took off and abandoned him and the kids for several days at one point. Of course, this made the police feel that it was likely that she had just taken off again and would return when she was ready. But in fact, in the earlier incident, Veronica had packed a bag and left after a bad argument, and made sure that her family knew where she was, at her aunt's house. She stayed with relatives for a cooling-off period before returning home. But this report that she was prone to disappearing was a serious hindrance to the missing persons investigation. Francisco has not participated in searches, has been very vague with the details about what Veronica was wearing the night she vanished, and has told the boys that their mommy left with another man. In general, he has stonewalled. The family believes that Francisco left the home on Saturday night purportedly to go night fishing. There is video footage of him traveling toward the fishing location with some large materials in the back of his truck that were not there when he returned. Fidencio is not comfortable telling us more about this because it is part of the ongoing police investigation. We can only hope that this information is being followed up on, as it is quite concerning. Veronica's disappearance is very perplexing. She and Francisco lived in a trailer park where the homes were all very close together, and Veronica's family describes her as loud and very vocal. No one saw her leave the house that night, which is her husband's story. But if she stayed in the home, what happened to her? And how did her children and the neighbors not hear anything? And where is she? The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office has no leads. They have followed up on sightings that have been reported, but none of them have panned out. They have not searched the area where Francisco went fishing. Veronica remains classified as missing, and her case appears to have stalled. Veronica was born on June 7th, 1996. She would now be 24 years old. She is under 5 feet tall and weighs 130 to 160 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes, has a dark mole near her left eye, and her hair was dyed burgundy when she disappeared. When she was last seen, she was wearing a gray and white long-sleeved crop top, jeans, and blue sandals. If you have any information on Veronica's case, please call the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 813-247-8200. Mike Morford sat down with Fidencio Mujares, Veronica's dad, to discuss her case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Fidencio, and thank you for coming on to discuss your daughter Veronica's case with us today.
Thank you for helping out.
It's our pleasure to help your family and your loved ones get some answers and spread the word, and that's what we want to try and do if we can. How long has your daughter been missing now?
So she disappeared on the 18th of January of last year.
Yeah, just over a year. Has that been a very tough time for you and your family?
I mean, yeah, it's very tough for siblings and especially our kids, you know. I think kind of rough, but I try to be strong for the rest of the family, you know, siblings and stuff.
So you have to balance sort of, you know, your own worry and whatever comes with that with trying to stay strong.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I do have my moments, you know. I try not to show weakness in front of my other kids and my grandbabies.
If you would you sort of walk us through, give us an idea of what was going on in Veronica's life right before she disappeared? What was her normal activity? What things was she doing?
Well, she was a stay-at-home mom, you know, and she had 2 children from the previous marriage before, you know, for previous relationship. And she met up with this guy that she's been with for about a year, then decided to get married. So they were married for about a year, and that's when everything started crumbling. You know, I mean, as far as I knew, the marriage was great. You know, I mean, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. You know, and after my daughter disappeared, I kind of found other stuff that I didn't want to find out, but about how bad the marriage was.
How were you able to find that out? Did you talk to people or just get it like secondhand?
I got it from a couple friends of hers that actually forwarded messages between them and my daughter. You know, according to them and my daughter, he would put his hands on her.
And so right away, that's a red flag.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about the day when she went missing. How did that day unfold as far as you understand it?
Well, the day she went missing, like I said, I didn't find out till the day after. You know, my son-in-law, he texted me on Facebook Messenger asking me if I've seen my daughter because she hasn't been home since Friday. You know, we're talking about Saturday. On Saturday, and I mean on Sundays when he messaged me. On Sunday at about 3:45, he messaged me. You know, we were talking already a whole day and a half, almost 2 days, before he reached out to me.
Is it typical for her to stay out of contact? Would there be a day or two where you wouldn't hear from her?
Yeah, me and her talk. Like I said, we talked all the time. You know, especially when it came to the grandkids. You know, I mean, she's my firstborn. She's always been, you know, dad's girl.
So she wouldn't go away with just not mentioning, hey, I'm going to go away, I'm making plans, I'm doing something. You don't think that's something she would do? It's not in her nature.
No. I mean, even if she was mad at me, she took off. She wouldn't have took off without her boys. You know, she got the 3 sons, and she was always been well involved with them. You know, with school with them and stuff like that. So she was a proud mom.
So once you realized she was missing, what was the next thing you did? What steps did you take?
Well, like I say, he contacted me on Sunday about 3-something in the afternoon. And, I mean, because in December, they got in an argument. You know, her and him got a little argument. She went out to my sister's house, her aunt's, And they had a couple of drinks, and she didn't go back home. She went to her other aunt's house, spent the night over there to avoid, I guess, to avoid the argument or whatever. And he contacted me that day also. And as soon as he contacted me, I reached out to her, and she messaged me like, ASAP. Well, we got an argument. I don't want to go home. So she contacted me. She told me what was going on. So when he contacted me that Sunday, I was kind of in the back of my head thinking it was, the same thing. And as Monday went through, of course, thoughts went through my head, maybe something bad happened or something. And I still want to face it. I didn't want to face reality until, it finally came to it, and I couldn't take it no more. I had to leave work myself that Monday.
Did you go to the police immediately?
Well, like I told you, I thought she had, took out with a friend or something, But that Monday, he already had scheduled to go see a police officer to report her missing, which he didn't go do that till like 2:00 that afternoon.
So by that point, she was missing a few days.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't do it at home. He went all the way to my ex-wife's house, Veronica's mother's house.
And where were her children in the meantime? Did they stay at a sister's house? Is that correct?
Well, that night she went out. She had her youngest sister watch the boys and babysit them. He stayed with the baby, and the other one she babysitted the two oldest boys. So as soon as she got dropped off at home, she left at a little bit after 1 to go pick up the boys from her sister's house.
From there, when is it that she's lost track of? Do you know when she actually sort of went off radar?
We were able to find camera footage from one of the neighbors there, and she shows her coming back home about 1:45 in the morning after picking up the boys. It shows her, driving into the house, the driveway. And after that, nobody's seen or heard from her.
So she makes it home, according to this camera footage.
Yep, she makes it home, puts the boys to bed, and vanishes.
What did the scene look like at the house? Was there any sign of a struggle? Was there anything out of place? Anything missing?
Well, like I said, when he contacted me, I had went over there that Monday. As soon as I left work, when I couldn't take it anymore, I went over there. And he shows me, he's like, look, her shirt she was wearing that night in the truck, her wallet, and our belongings, except for her phone. Her phone's MIA. We don't know where it's at. And he's, showing me, and he told me, he's like, I woke up the oldest son, and he told me that mom had walked outside after she put them to bed. But like I said, that's his story.
But the children themselves, have they talked to police to verify that or add anything?
Well, the police didn't question the oldest boys, until almost 6 months later. And kids at that age, he was 5 at the time, they have no concept of time. So, they could have told you what happened last week, for today. But they said that the oldest son never said that. They questioned him about that, and he said that they had fought one time, and he told her to leave, and she left in the red truck.
That sounds like they made a mistake by not maybe questioning him early on when his memory was still fresh.
Yeah. Well, the cops, they automatically looked at it as a mom who was tired of her life, and she just took off.
Like she wanted to get away and make a new start, essentially?
Yeah.
You mentioned one thing about the phone. Phone's not been found. Was there any attempt to track it or anything like that? I thought I read that there was some pings in the area. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, see, that's the problem. They didn't start doing nothing until 6-7 months later. When I went over there that Monday and I started poking around, searching around, she had an Android phone. She had just purchased like 2 weeks prior. And she has a Chromebook. You log in into Google. So I was able to break into her laptop, hack it and get in it, and I was able to track everywhere she went that Friday night. And that's how I know what time she was dropped off, what time she was, got home, et cetera, et cetera. But for that whole weekend, it shows that her phone was around that area, either at home or, anywhere there. But it also shows that it had left Monday about 11. But remember, that's when he went to report that she was missing.
So it sounds like, and again, there's been no arrest or anyone charging this, but it sounds like you have some suspicion of him and that perhaps he had the phone with him.
Well, that's my belief. Without true evidence, I can't really say he did have it or whatever. But that shows that phone went missing around that time, and it died that Monday about 9:30. A little bit after 9:30, it died or was turned off. Because calls weren't going through or messages weren't going through anymore.
And just touching on the night when she vanished, you hadn't spoken to her for a couple days, but others that did interact with her the night she went missing, did she seem normal? Was anything bothering her? Did she talk about any other issues going on?
Well, see, I had spoke to her that Thursday, the night before she went out. Me and her I had stopped by there to talk to her. Because, I was always on the way home from work. I would do surprise stops and see how she was doing, see how my grandbaby was doing. And she never mentioned it to me. She was actually happy because she asked me, she's like, Dad, the adoption is going to go through because he was adopting the two oldest boys. And she was like, Dad, why don't you take the day off and come with us? We'll go out to eat afterwards. And, that was the plan. And the adoption was going to be the week after she disappeared.
So she seemed in an upbeat mood and everything seemed good.
Yeah, everything seemed good, and that's what I told the cops. Why was she planning on taking off if the adoption was going through and everything was good, It totally made no sense to me.
And just one thing I want to clarify, too, for the listeners so they can follow along. Her husband, did he see or hear anything? Was he there at all that night when she went missing, or did he come home after she was already gone? How did that play out?
Well, his story was he was since out sleeping with the baby, and he didn't even hear her coming in or nothing.
So is it only the children that supposedly heard something, according to him?
Yeah, they know that they've seen her leave, go back outside.
And you mentioned there was camera footage of her coming home that night. Was there any camera footage of her leaving or any other cars pulling up after she came home, anything like that?
No. The only camera footage that shows is the husband leaving that Saturday night.
So that was after she went missing then?
After she went missing. Well, remember, Saturday night, I still didn't know she was missing. I didn't know until Sunday afternoon.
What is the area like where she was living? Is it rural? Is it urban? What's the crime like there?
Well, it's a mobile home park where she stays at. And it's actually pretty quiet around there. It's one of those where pretty much everybody knows everybody, And she had a real good relationship with her landlord. She actually went to school with the landlord's daughter. So she would go over there often and talk to the landlord and stuff like that, They were like friends.
Did she have a lot of friends, a big social life?
Well, she was very, how would you say, very gullible. She had a lot of trust in people, and she was always happy, upbeat.
Did any of those friends, any of the people that she knew, have anything to add or anything to say as far as what they thought may have happened, or anything that added to the investigation?
Well, actually, the friend that she went out with that night, she refused to talk to anybody. She refused to talk to me. She refused to talk to police. She just wouldn't answer nobody's calls or messages.
Is that still the case now? Is that still the position that she hasn't talked?
Well, she come to find out, she ended up talking to the police after the fact. And like I said, this whole time for 6 months, they got information from the friend's cell phone. They still had it in their head that she was talking to her best friend, and she took off somewhere else, and she still had contact, and that's all they were looking into. They didn't want to, open up the whole thing and look at the whole, as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How about in her personal life? Did she have any kind of things that might have opened the doors to something bad happening? Any drug issues or mental issues or anything along those lines that could have pointed to something happening?
Drugs. She hated drugs. She was never into drugs. As a father, I mean, I know kids do a lot of things that fathers don't know, but I know before her wedding night, we had my wife had a bachelorette party for her. And she didn't even drink. They made her a drink. She maybe took a drink out of it and stayed there. She's not a drinker. So
she wasn't a big partier that would get, drunk or do stuff with drugs and then run off and do something irresponsible or put herself in harm's way.
No, by far. Like I said, she was well involved with her kids before she even did that. And I would get the kids every weekend, and come Saturday night, she's calling me, you want me to get the boys, or, I mean, I would understand if she would have came dropped off the boys and that took off for a week or two, then yeah, that would be understandable. But no, that was unlike her.
You mentioned the police really didn't get involved in this for quite a while. They sort of dismissed it. What did you do until they really did get involved? Did you have people out searching? What were you doing? You must have felt kind of helpless trying to find a needle in a haystack at that point.
Well, like I said, I mean, when they went back out there, it was that Tuesday, they went back out there to talk to anybody, talk to the husband, talk to me. By then, I already had went to her laptop, her cell phone that she would use at home. It wasn't hooked up to data, but it was hooked up to Wi-Fi. I had another cell phone she had, and I went through all that, and I found where she went, what she did, and I tried to offer that to the police department, and they refused it. They said, "Oh, we don't need it." And I'm like, well, you might find something that I can't find. So that Saturday after she disappeared, we did a search party because where she lives at, there's a big horse trail, a lot of wooded area. So we decided to do a search in that wooded area. We had over 150 people show up to help us out. And we were out there from 7 in the morning all the way to 7 in the afternoon.
And you didn't turn up anything, any signs of anything?
Nothing. I even called the police department, to give us pointers or even come join us. And I got no response.
Well, that's got to be a very helpless feeling to not get any kind of positive help or input from the police.
No, I was outrageous. I was pissed, and I didn't know what to do. We pay our taxes for this police department to help us out or do to protect and serve, and I believe they just weren't serving.
I know over time, a lot of people have talked about and mentioned that your daughter's case might be connected to another missing person, Kaya Taylor's case.
Kaya Taylor, yeah.
She went missing 3 weeks after Veronica from Plant City. Why do you think that the cases may or may not be connected? Are there things similar or any differences? What do you think?
Well, like I said before, I did my own investigation, and for me, the suspect would be the husband. But before that, a couple of weeks prior to my daughter being missing, you would hear in the news constantly human trafficking. Girls are coming up missing. And around that time, remember, my daughter came out missing on the 18th of January. February, you got the Super Bowl that we had here in Miami. And there was the big prostitution bust up there in Miami during the Super Bowl. So this girl comes up missing too. So I'm thinking, these girls got snatched up, took to Miami. I mean, as a father, you don't even know what to think or where to go, Because, I mean, same thing with Kaya. Everything was left in the car. Her wallet, her cell phone, and she just vanished.
So there were some similarities about the disappearances. Were there any similarities in their backgrounds or in their lives as far as you know?
Well, like I said, I'm well involved with Kyle's family, because I figure, the we stick together, the louder we are, the more we get some kind of help, some kind of something. And they told me, the only thing with Kaya, she was involved in drugs. So they kind of think it's more something separate, different than my daughter. Even the police department categorized it as different because of the drug relation. So
the police have looked into that connection to see if there could be some kind of link.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know they had friends from Facebook or whatever that that were the same people. But I mean, it's Plant City is a small town. Kind of everybody knows everybody around here.
And you mentioned too the trafficking. You're pretty close to Tampa, I take it, right?
Yeah.
I'm from Southwest Florida myself, so I'm familiar with the trafficking news that came out recently of how
we're number 2 in human trafficking.
It was dozens and dozens of people they arrested that they rounded up for that trafficking.
Yep.
Well, that's a good thing to get those people off the street. It's also got to be pretty alarming that there's people out there in that community like that.
Well, I mean, that's what makes me mad. I mean, we're up there top rated in human trafficking, and the young lady disappears, and the first thing you want to say is, well, that she probably took off. Look into every single thing that could have happened before you even automatically say, okay, this is what happened.
Why do you think that overall the police just were slow to get moving and slow to help you out? What do you think the reason was?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, for a while there, I started playing the race card. I mean, I was just beyond, mad. I was beyond. I didn't know what their excuse would be and why they're doing the way they're doing it. Like I said, Kaya Taylor, she's black and white mix. My daughter's Hispanic. And, I see these other girls come up missing. Like one girl came up missing, I think it was in Georgia or Alabama, Madison Bell. And within a couple of weeks, she had over $100,000 reward on with her. She had the FBI involved. She had all these people involved. And come to find out, she just ran away.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be some double standards as far as the attention that certain cases get, or which is unfortunate. You think anyone that is missing a loved one should be able to go to the police no matter what race they are, or what age they are, or what lifestyle they're living. They should be able to go there and get help and not run into roadblocks.
I mean, even the Kyle Taylor for one, yeah, she was involved in drugs, but you got to remember that's somebody's daughter. Somebody's sister. So regardless how you want to look at them, they got family.
And has the relationship with the police gotten any better? Are they keeping you updated? Have they made any kind of progress?
No, they pretty much gave up on the case already. We had a fella, Joe Corello, contact me from Miami. He's a private investigator. He told me he would do a pro bono and look into the case. So he went up to the police department, Hillsborough County Police Department. And as soon as he walked in there, they pretty much gave him all the paperwork, said, you know what, this is pretty much yours. And here's another case from Kyle Taylor we want you to look into. And he contacted me, my detective for Hillsborough County. And he's like, you probably ain't going to hear much from us anymore unless something really comes up.
Wow.
So they pretty much, wiped their hands clean with it and gave it to the PI.
Wow, that's very, very frustrating to hear that. Has your PI been able to make any progress or find any clues?
No, he's like I said, everybody I've talked to, including him, they all point towards the husband, but without proper evidence, there's really nothing you can do.
for his side of the story, obviously he's not here to defend himself or to answer for this, but what has her husband said to people about his involvement or lack of involvement, should we say?
Well, he tells. I know. He's supposed to be real church going and stuff like that. But I know I was there one day when a pastor went in there to talk to him, kind of comfort him. He pretty much already had it in his head and told them that she took off. She took off with another man or, whatever, and then abandoned the boys. That's my middle grandson. He pretty much told me the same thing. He's like, I hate mom. She left us for a boyfriend, and I'm like, where did you hear this from? And he told me, Papi, which that's what they called him.
So you think he essentially planted that in their heads and got them thinking that way? Yeah,
that she didn't love him anymore, and she just left him. I don't know if he did that to comfort them and tell them, she just left, and instead of telling them something happened to her, I don't know what's going on in his twisted head,
Well, we know that it sounds like they pretty much washed their hands of the case. The police seem like they've handed it off or really put it on the back burner. What do you think, if they were helping and they were working on it actively, what do you think could be done that might help find some answers? What are the things you'd like to see done, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, the thing is, like I told you, they looked at her as a runaway from the get-go. They dropped the ball and let it sit there and sit there and sit there. So when they finally picked up the ball, the game's over. If I would have done something to my wife here and you gave me 6 months, you know how much I can clean up in 6 months? How much I can make, how many things I can make disappear? Take every case serious before you automatically want to assume. That's the only thing I would love to change.
Yeah. That's a lot of time, like you mentioned, to clean stuff up, to hide stuff, or even if there's another explanation for going missing, it's still time that goes by that people forget stuff. Potential witnesses leave town, whatever, and it all adds up to a lack of answers in a case.
Mm-hmm. Her husband probably had nothing to do with it. But, the trail could have still been warm if they would have jumped on it. They were supposed to jump on it.
So now it's over a year later. It sounds like, at least as far as the police are concerned, you're not expecting much out of them. What are you hoping for? What's your outlook on the case for, right now?
Well, I joined a whole lot of missing persons Facebook pages and stuff like that. And, I see people missing from the 80s, and I just feel that's where I'm going to be, 10, 20 years from now, with no answers.
Yeah, it's got to be a helpless feeling. And then her kids are going to be missing her as well.
And I'm there trying to fill the void of her missing, to them, keep her alive.
As tough as it is on you, it's probably tough on them as well. How are they handling it now? Are they still talking?
Well, like I said, the oldest one, if usually when I pick him up here and there, he'll tell me, I miss mom, and all I'll do is tell him, I'm doing what I can to bring her home to have answers. I know he probably don't comprehend, but I tell him the truth. I'm not going to be to run the bush with, about it.
So after running into so much negative stuff along the way and not getting a lot of help, do you try and remain hopeful that Veronica will be found, or at least answers will be found, or are you already giving up hope?
No, because like I said, I still hear stories where, 6 years, 8 years later, this girl was found and she's alive, but I still look at the negative things about it, what mental status is she in, I mean, from my understanding, these girls, as they tell that, they drug them up to be honest, they don't even know who they are or where they are. Their minds are out there already.
Also, even in that circumstance, even if you found her again and she had, fallen to trafficking or whatever, she might not be the same person. She might be really hurt from what was done to her.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're pretty sure that no matter what, she didn't walk away on her own and start some new life. That part you definitely don't believe.
No. I mean, for a while there, like I said, when she started dating this guy here, she kind of went MIA. She was missing in action. I would see her here and there. And after they got married, she started coming around, hanging out with the family. Because like I said, I have 7 siblings myself, and we always have get-togethers for holidays. We're Mexican. We do every holiday, family time. And she started getting well involved and hanging out with the family. And to do that and just to vanish, they don't add up. So I mean, I know something happened.
Well, I think at least now, until the police are willing to help more, or till maybe your private investigator finds something, the best thing we can do is at least keep her case out there, get the word out, spread around that, hey, have you seen this girl? She's missing. Her case is not solved. And just put it out there, and hopefully the right person with some information comes forward, and we're happy to help you do that.
Well, like I told you, I mean, I'm working with Kaya's family. We're working together, and right now we have the Strawberry Festival here in town, that city. Every year they come. And me and Kaya's family, we're out there handing out flyers, to people. Don't forget, we got this girl missing from this town, 2 girls. We got to figure something out. And it's sad when a lot of them don't even accept the flyer. They look at you and like, no, I don't want it.
It seems like that's been between the police and people like that won't even take a flyer. It seems like you really hit a lot of roadblocks.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I mean, I never even thought about it before in my life, but you don't until it hits home.
Is there a Facebook page for her?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, and we have one shared with Kaya. So we have 2 Facebook pages. The official Veronica page, and the other one is finding Veronica and Kaya Taylor.
So that I guess if there's a positive thing to both of them being missing is you're sort of helping each other and giving each other support in the cases, so you have some kind of people helping. I hope that, I know this year has been tough on you and your family, and I hope that somehow, some way you do get answers, and we'll do our part to share Veronica's case. I can't thank you enough, Fidencio, for coming on to discuss the case.
No, like I said, vice versa. I didn't even thanking you, even taking the time to do it.
We're definitely not the police, but we're willing to do whatever we can to try and help on our end.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, we hope that you'll contact the appropriate authorities.
We hope that you'll tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will really help us grow. And if you'd like to help us reach new listeners, please be sure to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get ad-free early access to every new episode of Missing Persons, as well as any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes directly towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with 2 worthwhile causes that benefit the efforts to bring missing people home: CharlieProject.org and Private Investigations for the Missing. Your Patreon support will really go a long way towards helping. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder, new episodes of Missing Persons drop every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can always find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. As we wrap up this episode, We'd like to play a preview for you for Season 2 of the podcast, Criminal Conduct. Be sure to give it a listen. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford, saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Criminal Conduct is back with a brand new season. John, what is a constable?
Like a police officer, they can carry a gun, a badge, and drive around town with blue lights. But a constable is much more powerful than a regular police officer. In Kentucky, a constable has all the powers of a sheriff. He answers to no one but the voters on Election Day.
And there's one constable in Kentucky that got our attention.
Mike Wallace, the constable, was a walking civil rights violation. He's got a gun and a badge and is able to intimidate a lot of people.
If he got behind me and turned his blue lights on, I ain't stopping.
Constable Wallace has been accused of shaking people down and stealing their cash.
It's kind of like giving a fox the keys to the chicken house.
This Wally guy is notorious for planting drugs, stealing shit. Everybody knows it. It's just we just can't nail him. He said, "But you know what? You just might be the difference."
From the creators of Twisted and Pretend podcast comes Season 2 of Criminal Conduct.
You're not a bad man, you're not a bad man, I'm not a bad woman.
The new season starts on April 16th. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.